plans for this evening? Perhaps a game night?
Game over, man. It's game over.
Shut up. Play the game. Play it from your heart.
26 years ago, we started playing a little game. Now, we're all gonna sit down. We're gonna finish it.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
And here we go.
Hello, welcome to Dice Camera Action, a mashup podcast where we discuss board games and movies. I'm Matt Cousineau, and we are going to podcast the shit out of this.
And I'm Jason Tripp, and in the event of a cataclysmic event, I feel much more equipped now to survive by becoming a potato farmer.
You just have to collect your feces, no big deal.
That's it, yeah. So today on the pod, maybe you know what those callbacks were in reference to, but we got a really fun episode lined up for you. Our main review is going to be the board game Mission Red Planet. And as you may have guessed, we're going to pair it with the movie The Martian.
Yeah, so basically just going to talk quickly about why we chose this movie, this game. I guess recently I had watched The Martian, and we were kind of looking at some pairings that we could do, and Mission Red Planet was a crossover of both of us. We had both played the game and enjoyed it, and not the perfect game, but there's a lot of fun to be had there, and there were other options on the game side of things. We had briefly discussed On Mars.
It's a beast.
It is a beast. It's one of my favorite games, but even having said that, I've only played 4 or 5 times over the last 3-4 years. And then now I'm separated enough from my last play that I would have to kind of go through the rules and relearn some of the stuff again. And just in terms of time, it just made more sense to choose another game.
Yeah, and some of the meatier, really heavy games, they are a little more problematic to do on an audio podcast without it being on the table for you watching.
Yeah, we'd probably have to talk about it in a little bit more broad terms instead of getting into all the minutiae of the rules.
Nonetheless, very good game if you're looking for a heavier board game.
For sure. We also considered briefly Terraforming Mars. I only have one play of Terraforming Mars under my belt. Didn't love it. I liked it, but didn't love it. And I don't know, what is your experience with Terraforming Mars? I'm not sure we've even discussed that.
I've played it a few times. I enjoy it. I don't own it, but it's semi-regularly hits the table with some of my gaming groups. And yeah, I think it's a game that presents a lot of interesting strategic choices. So I would recommend you give it another go. You'll probably enjoy your next.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I need to play it again to really have more of an opinion of it, or a more realistic opinion of it. After my first impression after one play was that it just felt like too long a game to be a mostly heads down game, and that's just a personal preference.
Yeah, that makes sense. So at the end of the day, we chose this game, Mission Red Planet. We both enjoy it. It's an accessible game, but it does present enough interesting choices, and the mechanics sort of embedded in the game are quite interesting. So we'll get into that shortly. There were some on the movie side. There were some other options as well, right, Matt? You want to talk about some of the other Mars-themed movie options?
Yeah, so just a few that off the top of my head would have been fun to discuss. John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars. Have you seen that?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great movie, but if you love a campy,
campy's the word,
a violent, campy, silly, corny, full of corny lines, and but it is fun. It is undeniably fun, at least for me. I had a good time with it. I would not call it a good movie. It's far from a good movie.
When you think of John Carpenter, you don't think Ghosts of Mars.
No, not one of his better works. But there's some wild stuff in there. It's one that is worth watching just for how
it's definitely unforgettable.
Yeah, absolutely. Total Recall is one of my favorite movies, probably. It's an absolute classic. Talking about camp. There's some camp there too.
It's a product of its time, though,
for sure. And I find it still very inventive. And there's a lot of other themes, and we talked about sci-fi being a reflection of humanity. There's tons to mine there.
Get your ass to Mars. Tons to mine there. Oh, pun intended.
Yeah. So it's a fun one for sure. Definitely recommend checking that one out before you get deep into the sci-fi well and dig up Ghosts of Mars.
And then you brought up one that's a little more obscure in the sci-fi genre, maybe an underrated sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it just came out a couple years ago, I want to say, or in the last year, maybe even. It is called Stowaway, and it is a very underrated sci-fi movie about a mission to Mars. So I don't believe they ever make it to Mars in the movie.
Spoiler alert.
So I don't know if it actually works as a crossover for the theme of what we're doing here today. But I wanted to shout it out. It is great. And basically, without spoiling too much, the premise is that a team of 4 astronauts take off to a manned mission to Mars, and it's something like a 2 or 3 year expedition just to get there. And then, after a couple of hours of being well on their way, they discover that, what's the type of worker he might be? He's a technical guy or like a science nerd of some kind, who somehow got knocked out or had a little bit of an accident and was basically hidden away in the compartments of the ship somehow. And they launched with him on board. So now they've got a long journey.
With an unexpected stowaway.
Interesting
premise.
And there's only so many supplies for them to be able to make the trip and survive the trip and get back. So
there is some crossover with some of the theme and suspense in The Martian, right? With that limited resources trying to survive.
Yeah. So I would say it's more of a sci-fi drama, just about the interpersonal, connections that these people make and the really tough decisions that they have to make in order to survive and make this trip. Right. So it is tense, and it is a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of it. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. Yeah, it's on Netflix, I believe. Yeah,
it's on Netflix here in Canada. Worth checking out for sure as you're scrolling through your feed. So before we get into the meat of the game review of Mission Red Planet and a little bit of discussion about The Martian, as we typically do here on Dice Camera Action, we want to talk a little bit about what we've been up to, what games we've been playing, what movies we've been watching. So I'll just share briefly a game that I've been digging into, and depending on the day, this is my favorite game. Definitely in my top 3. It's hard to pick a favorite, right, Matt? But I don't think you've played this one as of yet. I mentioned to you a few times, but it's called Viticulture. It's in the top 20, I believe, on Board Game Geek still, by one of my favorite designers, Jamie Stegmaier, and I'm a sucker for a good, thoughtful worker placement game. It's got some hand management elements in it as well. So basically, recently I played this game. It's the Essential Edition that I would recommend with the Tuscany expansion. Adds some interesting extra cards and decisions, but it's a worker placement winemaking game.
Can it be even the Essential version if you need an expansion?
Well, the history of this game is interesting. It was first released and it was bare bones, and it's a game that takes place over the 4 seasons in the Essential. So spring, summer, fall, winter, right, doing the winemaking process, and you repeat the year and you send your workers out at different seasons. But the original game only had 2 seasons and limited worker placement spots, and it was fine. But actually, Jamie Stegmaier actually consulted the godfather of all worker placement games, Uwe Rosenberg. Right. And together, in consultation with him, they re-released an Essential Edition of the game, which adds the 4 seasons. It adds some interesting elements. And then from there, they added a Tuscany expansion. And so I would recommend definitely getting at least the Essential Edition if you're curious to play this game. And if you like it, add the Tuscany expansion. It adds to it. But basically, you got your own little sort of vineyard, mat that you're playing on, and you're crushing the grapes and putting them into bottles, and you're selling the bottles. You're going through basically the entire winemaking procedure. You're collecting cards in hand, sort of seasonal visitor cards are called, and so those are ways that you can accelerate the production process. And it's a victory point themed game, so you're racing to get to a certain number of victory points. There is some interaction in the game, a little bit of take that, not too much, with these cards in hand. and depending on the player count to 6 players, it opens up more spots on the board, and multiple players can go in the same spot with a higher player count. I love the immersiveness of the theme. It's my favorite game because I love teaching it. It's easy enough to teach, and my gaming group, my wife loves this one as well. So we'll pull out a bottle of wine, have the full-bodied experience of the game. And so that's Viticulture. It's one that hits the table semi-regularly at my house and with my gaming group. Check it out if you're not familiar with it. I'm sure many of our listeners have. And then a movie that actually we watched together, Matt. We went to the theater recently and we saw the latest, I think the 5th installment of the Mad Max cinematic universe.
Saga.
The saga, yeah. Yeah. It's George Miller, Australian director, who's doing some unique things in the action genre. We saw this on the big screen, which was pretty incredible. Stars Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth. Fantastic performance.
So this is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Yeah, I'm not sure we mentioned the title yet.
Yeah, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. And for those of you familiar with the 2015 movie Fury Road, this is basically the prequel to that popular film that came out then. So almost a decade later, we see young Furiosa, played by a great child actress. I forget her name.
She was
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then as she grows up, Anya Taylor-Joy reprises a role played by Charlize Theron back in the Fury Road iteration back in 2015. So whereas Fury Road takes place over literally a couple of days, this is protracted out over decades and shows sort of the backstory about Furiosa's character.
And we will very likely cover this in a full review.
Yeah, so I won't say much more today, but I think this is one we can revisit, and definitely some interesting games we could probably pair this film with. So that's what I've been up to, and I had a chance to enjoy that one together in theater.
Yeah, last week or so I haven't gotten too much gaming in. I did get a game in of Underwater Cities a few nights ago, so that was great. It's one of my favorite games. But what I really wanted to talk about today was a couple of movies, kind of smaller, more indie. I don't know if indie is the right word, but smaller, less in the public eye movies that I think are worth recommending to folks. So the first one is called The Last Stop in Yuma County. So I'll read the synopsis here really quick. While awaiting the next fuel truck at a middle-of-nowhere Arizona rest stop, a traveling young knife salesman is thrust into a high-stakes hostage situation by the arrival of 2 similarly stranded bank robbers, with no qualms about using cruelty or cold hard steel to protect their blood-stained, ill-gotten fortune. So yeah, this knife salesman, played by Jim Cummings, who I'm a big fan of, shows up to gas up in this middle-of-nowhere Arizona gas stop, and the attendant comes up and says, "We're still waiting for the fuel truck. We've got no gas. There's a diner next door. You can go have a coffee, and it should be here anytime." Of course. Yeah. And then, of course, over the next hour and a half, more characters come in, and they're similarly stranded, as the synopsis says. And then because this bank robbery has been on the news and stuff that morning, a lot of people start to recognize the vehicle and stuff like that. And so I won't go into too much more detail, but it does have some like Tarantino-esque kind of like trapped in one location, really good dialogue, some interesting action, and really great characters. Because I want to say there's a dozen people or so in this movie that show up at this gas stop, and the robbers are trying to keep things quiet, and then at some point everybody else is kind of quote unquote in a hostage situation, and as more people come in, they're trying to keep the secret away from others so that less people get involved and that kind of thing. So just lots of these like small moments of this person knows a thing or that person doesn't know a thing, and we're trying to make sure that these people stay safe. That this is lots of this like this web of interconnected people all trapped in the same place, and really interesting. I highly recommend it. It was a lot of fun.
And this is a newer film, right? 2023?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's available to stream?
I forget what service I watched this on, but I must have streamed it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Cummings is interesting, right? He had his breakout with Thunder Road a few years ago. I really liked his one in 2021 called The Beta Test. That was interesting. I don't know if you've seen that.
That one I haven't seen, but I was
Okay.
a big fan of Thunder Road and a big fan of the werewolf one. What's it called? The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
Yes.
Like that one a lot too. Kind of like a whodunit in a small town. But the Who is the werewolf, or a werewolf-esque, creature or murderer.
Sure.
And then Jim Cummings plays the sheriff or one of the cops in the town, trying to figure out who this werewolf is. It's a fun one.
Okay, so that's Last Stop in Yuma County. That's one you perked my interest. I'll check that one out. And you mentioned another movie. What's the other movie that you watched recently that you want to discuss, man?
So the other one is Late Night with the Devil. And this is a really interesting movie. I'll bring up the synopsis on that one as well.
It's not a biopic about hanging out with me, is it? No. While you're looking up the info for that one, interesting. The lead actor, I was telling you about this off camera, is David Duchalmian. He's been in a number of Christopher Nolan films. And I was at the airport in Toronto a couple of weeks ago picking up a friend, and sure enough, we're walking out, and he walks right past us. I think there was a special screening of the film that he was live at.
Okay, cool.
And so as soon as he knew we noticed him. He just kind of hide. He kind of put his head down. He was carrying a bouquet of flowers. It must have been maybe meeting a girlfriend or another co-star. Maybe I'm not sure what was up. We were trying to theorize what he was doing there. Right? Maybe he was meeting with the devil. Flowers for the devil. Yeah. So I haven't seen this one yet. I'm kind of on the fence because horror is not my genre, but it definitely piqued my interest.
I would recommend this to non-horror fans. If you're a film fan, this is one that's not just
it's kind of a campy
throwback
homage to. 70s.
I'm not even sure it's campy.
No.
But it's definitely shot in the style of a 70s late night show.
Okay.
And not only is that the setting, but that is the look and feel of the movie.
Mm.
So the live television event that shocked the nation is kind of the tagline. A live broadcast of the late night talk show in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. So, basically this late night host, has a fascination with, the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's trying to get ratings up, right? Isn't he trying to do something for shock appeal?
Yeah. So what ends up happening is that he invites a bunch of mentalists, psychics, magicians, but people who actually purport to be legitimate. And then he invites a cynic onto the show, somebody who used to be a magician himself. And now he has made it his career or his life goal to kind of bust these people and prove that they're not wrong. And this character is actually based off of a real life person who did exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to look him up. Maybe I'll include something in the show notes. But there's an older gentleman. I think he's since passed away, but he used to be a magician.
Yeah.
And then saw that there was a branch of this entertainment industry that was taking advantage of people and selling basically spook shows or selling the idea that you could talk to your loved ones and that kind of thing, and really taking advantage of people and their emotions. And so he made it a point to kind of bust these people, and he put up a prize of like $100,000 or $1 million or some sort of like prize. And this is actually part of the film as well, where he put out a prize where if you could actually prove, using science or using real methods, you can actually prove that you're legitimate, he would just give you this money. And he carries around a check in his pocket. And this is based off of a real person who I watched a documentary, really fascinating. So he invites this guy onto the show, and the guy's like busting people and like explaining the tricks and explaining the things and why it's not working and whatnot. And then a young girl comes onto the set with her caretaker, pretending, quote unquote, to be possessed by a demon of some kind.
And all hell breaks loose.
And then from there, really interesting stuff starts to happen. Just the style of this show and the look of this movie.
So it's pretty much one
fantastic.
location, the whole movie?
Yes, it's all on the set
scene.
of a talk show. And you do a little bit of backstage stuff with commercials when he goes, during commercial, he goes in the back and has a chit chat with some of the people there.
Interesting.
Is a little bit freaked out with what's going on, and there's some really good stuff here. And the lead, remind me his name again, David
Deshalmian.
Deshalmian, is that how you pronounce that? So David Deshalmian is great. And I think this is the first time I've seen him in a lead.
Yeah, he's pretty much sort of a supporting role. I recognize him.
Character guy.
Character actor. I recognize him from a lot of Christopher Nolan films.
Yeah, he was in Dune, I believe.
Yeah, he was in the first Dune. Yeah.
As one of the
of the Harkonnens.
The Harkonnen cronies or something, yeah. But definitely recommend this. If you're a horror fan, you're going to absolutely love this. If you're a non-horror fan, there's definitely lots there that you'll find interesting. Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. We'll give it a go. All right, so that's a little bit about what we've been up to of late. Let's get into the meat of the board game review. So once again, we're reviewing Mission Red Planet, designed by one of your favorite designers. It's funny when you pick up a game, you don't realize, you're like, oh, this is Bruno. It's a Bruno game. So
literally, as I'm writing out the show notes for this episode, I'm like, Bruno Cathala designed
this. Oh, you
didn't
realize
too?
it? Okay.
I didn't even know.
Yeah. So in partnership with another Bruno Fiduti.
The Brunos.
The Brunos. Two Brunos are better than one. So this is published by Fantasy Flight Games. Plays in 45 to 90 minutes, and I've played this anywhere from like 3-player. I don't think it's that good with 2-player, but up to 6-player. And sometimes 6-player can go a little beyond 90 minutes. But that's pretty accurate. The weight on Board Game Geek is 2.2, so you're in that sort of light medium range. It's rated solid 7.4 rating on BGG. Mm-hmm. This goes back to 2005, but the second edition it was redone in 2015. So let's maybe together give a quick rundown about how the game plays. Then we'll talk about who it's for and give our own personal ratings and scores, Matt.
Yeah, so theme-wise, it says here the year is 1888. So it is kind of a steampunk theme. The art is really charming. I'm a big fan. And we're sending people to Mars to mine resources, essentially. And if you can mine the most resources, at the end of the game, they're worth points. And that is kind of the theme of the game. Now, what we're actually doing in the game is if you can picture a planet with a bunch of zones. And did you count how many zones there are on the planet?
So on the table, we'll just visualize it for you if you've never played it. Basically like 4 puzzle pieces that you put together, and it makes basically a bird's eye view of the planet, the red planet. And you've got 9 zones on the planet. Plus you've got Phobos, the moon, which serves as sort of, I guess, a 10th region. And you've got 9 cards in hand. Every player has the same 9 cards.
This is like the Concordia system, I believe.
Which is one of my favorite games.
Yeah, I haven't played Concordia, but I understand that Concordia
Everybody has the same starting hand. In Concordia, it's not simultaneous action, but in this, it is.
Okay.
So basically, you're going to count down from 10, 9, 8, 7. Everybody's going to preload a card from their hand. And we'll talk about what the cards do. But just in general, the mechanics are you grab one of your 9 cards in your starting deck, you place that face down, and then there's a countdown. And we'll talk about who controls the countdown. But when you count down from 10, whenever we hit the number that you've pre-chosen, we pause the game, you reveal that card and you take your action. So whoever has the highest number gets to act first. But as we get into the strategy, there's some strategic choices about, do I want to go early in the round? Do I want to go later in the round? Because basically what the cards do is they send some of your characters onto some spaceships.
Right. I was going to say, before we get into what the cards do, there is this board of spaceships, or a line of spaceships, which are represented,
I think it's player count plus
cards.
1. So if you got a 4-player game, you've got 5 spaceships that have certain capacities to put your little mining characters on. And so we've got a couple in front of us. I think the capacity for each spaceship is between 2 and 5.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And they're and they're labeled with one of those 9 regions on the planet. So, for example, I've got one here. It says Sinus Sabius and the number 4. So that means all of the astronauts, potentially, if they make it alive, will go to that particular region, and there's only a maximum capacity of 4. And if you can't put all of your characters that your card determines how many characters you can load, it's all or nothing. If you can't fit them, none of them get to go on. So there's some advantages to getting on the ships earlier. There's some advantages to waiting. And as we talk about each of the cards, we can sort of share that with the listeners.
Right. So as soon as a spaceship hits its capacity, it launches.
It launches immediately. So you move it up off the loading bay to show to all the players that one is fully loaded now. That one is off. It's in orbit. It's hitting down to the planet.
Right. Depending on what cards everybody has played, that spaceship may contain one of my astronauts, 2 of yours, one of Jimmy's.
It could be multiple players, or it could be someone could have a monopoly on all of them. So maybe we should talk about the cards, because that really is where the fun part of the game is, determining what card you want to play at what portion of the game.
Maybe we should work backwards as well, because what happens is that there's a round timer, and we're going to go do 10 rounds. And then what's going to happen is each round we each choose a card, and then that cards get resolved based on its number in order. But what's happening is that there's certain intervals within the 10 rounds where we're going to do some.
There's going to be 3 scoring rounds. So after 5 rounds, we're going to pause game and score, and it's scored based on who has the majority in each region. Then again, after round 8, we're going to score it, and actually the points are doubled. And then after round 10, when the game ends, we'll have a 3rd scoring round, and there's triple.
That's right.
So you mentioned Concordia. I want to call out another game. I think this is even more similar to one that we've talked about off air, called El Grande. This is very similar in my mind to El Grande. It's got that area control. It's scored 3 times throughout the course of the game, and you're playing cards from a same starting deck. So I'm almost positive that Bruno was looking to El Grande for inspiration for this game.
Okay, very cool. And so essentially you're trying to get as many of your astronauts. We each have like a pool of astronauts, and you're trying to get as many of your astronauts on these regions to have majorities. And whoever has the majority in each section will score points on each scoring round. So like how we do that is by playing these cards. So maybe we can run down what some of these cards do.
Yeah, and maybe we should briefly say that on each region, there's 3 types of resources, and they have different values.
Right, which is randomized at the start of the game.
It's randomized at the start of the game. You just got question marks in each of these regions, but when the first person is the first to explore the region, you flip over that question mark, and then you reveal, it's one of 3 resources. I believe you got the names of those 3 resources.
Yeah, so they're either ice, and ice is worth 1 point each. Then you've got sylvanite, and sylvanite is worth 2 points each. And then you've got celerium, and celerium is worth 3 points each.
Yeah, and you'll have a few regions with each of those, but you don't know what's what until
somebody
get there, until someone gets there for the first time. And then typically, if it's the most valuable one, that's going to attract more of a crowd, right? But to try and balance the game, there is a bonus reward for the person who has the most ice at the end of the game as well. So it gives that lower valued resource a little more value at the end of it if you can collect the most ice. So let's talk about maybe the cards. So we've got 9 cards in hand. And again, each round you're picking one of those cards. And once you've used that card, you can't reuse that card until you reset your deck in hand. So you got to strategically pick when it would be best to play each card. So do you want to work our way down from the top down, Matt?
Well, in terms of like the composition of how these cards are set up, is that the number 9 card is the first card that is going to be played in any given round if you've played that card. But it is the weakest card.
Basically, that's the one that triggers your grabbing all your previously played cards.
That's right.
So you never want to play that card at or near the beginning of the game.
No, that's right. So once you're like at a point where you're like, okay, I'm starting to run out of options here. I only have a few cards left. Then you're going to play your number 9 to get your cards back in your hand so you can start replaying.
Yeah, so the number 9 card is called the Recruiter, and it allows you simply to place 1 astronaut in a dock ship and return all your character cards to your hand. So it's pretty weak in what it does, but if you really want to get another number back in your hand to play a second time during the game, because remember, there's only 10 rounds.
That's right.
So you're going to have to play this card at some point during the game. One of the interesting choices is, do I want to play this sort of mid-game to reset some of these other cards, or do I want to wait until late game to use some of the stronger cards earlier in the game? So that's the recruiter that allows you to reset your deck and only send one astronaut into a docked ship. Remember, once the ship is full, it launches, it's no longer considered a docked ship. So that limits the amount of space and ships available to put your astronauts on. So the lower numbered card you play, the longer you're waiting. You might have a great card, but when it gets to your turn, if all those ships are filled or close to filled and you can't fit all of your astronauts on them, then you're out of luck. You basically wasted that action.
That's right. Yeah. So the lower numbered card will act last, but typically those are the strongest cards that do the biggest, splashiest thing. But you may not have the opportunity to even use it if the previously played cards have like messed that plan up.
And we should say too, when you play cards, you got to keep that open so everybody sees everybody other cards and what they played. So you're kind of doing some strategy in your mind. Okay, they've already played X, Y, and Z. They may be playing this card. And so you kind of got to keep an eye on what other players have played to try and determine what is the best action for you. So you're keeping one hand on your own hand, but you're also keeping one eye on what everybody else has played.
Definitely a game for that reason. Definitely a game that shines the more you play it with the same group. Because if you start to get familiar with what the cards do, and you can kind of glance around the table and see like, oh, nobody has their number whatever card, I can play this safely, or I can wait until next round because it's not such and such a thing is not a threat. I'm not worried about whatever it might be in terms of like a ship being completely filled or whatnot. So knowing the cards really well is going to go a long way. But it's
But that being said, you may not want to replicate the same strategy every game. This is not like,
for sure.
Oh, you've got to be flexible based on the cards in play, based on what other people are doing, based on the ships that are in play. So that's what I love about it too. There's an elegance to the game where it's like, okay, last game I won, I did this. Well, I may not necessarily want or need to do the same thing to achieve victory next time you sit at the table.
For sure.
So that was the number 9 card. Maybe why don't we just work our way down? So the number 8 card is the Explorer. What does that one do, Matt? The Explorer.
So lets you place one astronaut in a docked ship and make up to 3 moves on Mars with your astronauts.
Yeah,
so
that's a powerful card.
Yeah,
and
you get to move your guys around on the map.
Typically, that's when I like to play going into a scoring round because on the round 5, 8, and 10, that's when things are going to be paused and we're going to score. So I maybe going into round 5, I want to get more of my guys already on the planet to a region that has the number 3 value. So maybe I'll move some of my astronauts around. Now, when we move astronauts around, basically moving from one spot to one adjacent spot of those 9 regions on the planet, that's one move. So you can move one minor 3 spaces, or you can move 3 1 space. It's just a total of 3 moves. You can never move from the planet to the moon with this card.
Right.
It's basically just on the red planet within those 9 regions.
Yeah, so number 7 lets you place a total of 2 astronauts in 1 or 2 docked ships and either draw 1 event card or look at a discovery card in play.
Yeah, and here's where we need to talk about another element. This is called the Scientist, by the way. The nice thing with this one is you can split where you put them. So it says you can place 2 astronauts either in 1 or 2 dock ships. That's nice in a scenario where there's only 1 vacant spot left in maybe 2 different ships. You can squeeze 1 on each ship, going to different locations. And yeah, let's talk about these event cards and discovery cards. There's 3 types of these smaller cards. There's event cards, there's discovery cards, and there's mission cards. So mission cards are basically give you end game bonus points, and that's secret hidden knowledge cards.
Everybody has one.
Everybody has one of those, and you collect more. You possibly can collect more. And so you want to keep one eye on that. That's a way to get some bonus points beyond controlling those specific regions. But here it says you can draw an event card. Let's talk a little bit about the event cards, Matt. The event cards are broadly speaking, the cards that could be mission cards or could be discovery cards, right? Those are called event cards?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, so they'll either do something in the moment or
give you another mission card for the end of the game, or give you one of these discovery cards. And so that was the other footnoted thing on this Scientist card is you can look at one discovery card in play. So what discovery cards do, and there's another one of the 9 cards that allows you to place and utilize these discovery cards. But you can put a face down discovery card around the perimeter of the red planet, touching one region, and that doesn't get discovered until the end of the game during scoring. And so that can either add or take away from the end game scoring in that particular region that it's under.
Yeah, so it's going to just change the rules of how that region acts at the end of the game.
And I know we're not talking about likes and dislikes till later, but I just want to say that I don't like this discovery card. This is the one part of the game I don't like, because there's this hidden knowledge that can really do some nasty stuff to you at the end of the game.
Right.
That could cause you basically lose when you think you're in a winning position.
Yeah.
So if you like a lot of Take That, you'll like this. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But that's a scientist card.
Yeah, then we got the Secret Agent. Place a total of 2 astronauts in 2 different docked ships and force one ship that is not yet full to launch. So that's a way that you can get
take total control of one ship.
Total control of one ship, and kind of sneak it out. So this one's called the Secret Agent.
Yeah, that one's nice, because then you can just control it, launches immediately, so nothing bad can happen, because bad things happen with the next card we're going to talk about, number 5.
That's right. This is the Saboteur. And the Saboteur will let you place 1 astronaut in a docked ship and destroy 1 docked ship. So there could be a docked ship with 3 or 4 astronauts on it. You're really excited to have that launch, and I could just blow it up.
Yeah, and the keyword is docked ship. Again, once a ship is full and it has launched, it is not vulnerable to the Saboteur. It's already in orbit. This is one partially full or empty ship that you're destroying. So obviously you want to destroy a ship that's partially full of other astronauts. Sometimes you're forced to destroy one that maybe has some of your astronauts in it.
Maybe that ship is coming to a location where you have full control on the planet and you don't want to relinquish that control, and that'll help you do that. So there's a bunch of different reasons you might do it, but that's one of the more popular ways to use it, and it's a fun moment depending on if you're on the receiving end or
Yeah, now correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but I believe if you can't do the first part of the card, I don't believe you're able to do the second part. So if you can't place 1 astronaut on a docked ship,
it does
you
say,
are unable to
end in bold here.
Yeah. So if you can't place the astronaut, if they're all full, then you lose the ability to destroy the docked ship as well.
That's right. Then there's the Femme Fatale, number 4. Place 1 astronaut in a docked ship, and, so again, that's that end keyword.
Yes.
So if you can't do the first part. So in 1 zone or ship where you have at least 1 astronaut, place 1 opponent's astronaut with 1 replace,
Yeah, you replace
1 of your opponent's astronauts with 1 of your astronauts.
So this one can be pretty nasty, because this is, again, going into a scoring round. It's an opportunity where you load up on a ship, but maybe you're tied with someone on the planet, or you're even behind by 1. Well, you can physically I could replace 1 of Matt's that I'm competing for with 1 of my own, which could put me over the top in one of those regions to gain the scoring bonus. So that's the Femme Fatale. It's sort of a 2-for-1 action. If you're able to do, again, the first action, you can do the second.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, the Travel Agent. What's the Travel Agent do, Matt?
So you place 3 astronauts in the same docked ship. So this one's a little bit trickier, but 3 astronauts.
High risk, high reward.
Is a lot, yeah. But again, this is number 3.
So you got to wait. You're sweating, holding your breath, hoping you can get 3. Yeah, so this is good when there's a lot of large ships in play.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a lot, obviously, if all the ships are 3 or 2 capacity, not a good time to play this card.
That's right. So place 3 astronauts in the same docked ship. If there is not at least 1 docked ship with room for 3 or more astronauts, ignore this effect.
Yeah, so there are times where it's so frustrating because you're like, oh, this is great. I can get 3 guys on board, but everybody else is playing higher numbers. And by the time it gets to you, there's not enough capacity. And if you can only fit 2 or 1, it's all or nothing. Yeah. It's all or nothing. So it's a high risk, high reward card.
Then we've got the Soldier. So the Soldier says place 1 astronaut in a docked ship and kill 1 astronaut on Phobos or an outer zone of Mars.
So outer zone meaning 7 of the 9 zones literally touch the perimeter of the board. There are 2 zones on the interior that aren't affected by the Soldier card.
That's right. and move up to 3 of your astronauts from Phobos to any zones on Mars. So Phobos, again, is that moon. It acts basically as just another region, but there are rules about you can't just move on and off of there unless you have a card like this that allows you.
Yeah, so one tip and trick that I often like, if there's early in the game, if one of the ships is going to the moon, I like to get some guys to the moon knowing that I can play this card later and move some from the moon to somewhere on the planet.
Specific zones,
yeah. And then last but not least, we got the pilot, the number 1.
Yeah, so pilot says place a total of 2 astronauts in 1 or 2 docked ships and place a destination token on one ship, either docked or launched. So there are these handful of these tokens that you can replace. As we said, the ship cards all have the name of one of the locations on the planet, or Phobos, the moon. And then there's some ships that don't have any name on it. And so when you draw that, you're actually going to randomly choose one of these tokens, and it'll tell you where that ship's going.
Yeah, I think it's the first person who loads some astronauts on that ship. They get to choose the location of their choice. But the pilot allows you to mess things up. And this is where you can really get nasty. There could be a ship that's already launched. So a person's thinking, yes, I'm going to the location I want. Well, wait a minute. I'm going to draw a new destination. I'm going to screw you over. So you might send them to a location where they're already winning, just to give them more redundant astronauts there. And you can really mess things up with the pilot. So you see, there's a little bit of take that, but there's a lot of strategy about when you want to play strategic cards based on the amount of vacancies on the ship or what's happening on the planet or the moon. And everybody's playing off the same deck. So there's a lot of interesting choices that happen.
Yeah, so let's get maybe into some of the stuff that we like and or don't like about it. For me, this is not a game you take too seriously. It doesn't last that long. It is based on the player count, so the more people you have, the longer it'll take. But it's not a game where it's not a heavy Euro game where every decision is kind of. It's not a highly strategic game. There's some strategy, but I find that is a lot of fun and silliness that occurs. Somebody's trying desperately to do such and such a thing, and then you blow it up. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they're going to do it right back to you next round. And I think that's what makes these kinds of games so much fun, is that it's not it typically isn't one person getting picked on. Everybody's picking on everybody at all times. And it just creates a lot of these hilarious social situations where we're just having a lot of good time. A good time.
Yeah, because bad things will happen to you during the course of the game. But there are cards too, like there are certain event cards that will actually give you points for the amount of casualties you have.
That's right. That was the last time I played this, that was my strategy. I had a mission card that gave me points for every dead person I had.
Yeah.
So I was totally fine getting sniped and having my people die. And in a lot of cases, I was doing it on purpose. Knowing that was going to happen. So yeah, there's a lot of silliness that can occur in this game, but I think that's part of the fun.
Yeah. And for me, I like this game a lot as well. Again, don't take it overly seriously because there is some stuff beyond your control that's going to happen during the course of the game. It doesn't quite hit the heights of its predecessor El Grande for me. But I think 6 gets really tight. I don't necessarily recommend this game at a 6-player count. 4 or 5 seems to be the sweet spot for me. There's enough interaction there.
I've never played it at 6, but I have played it at 4 and 5.
Yeah. One thing I don't like, if at 6-player, the board is a little too small. So you got all these tokens crammed into this small space. I would have liked that a little bit bigger on the table.
As
far as production design, that's my only critique. But I love the push and pull of this game because if one person tends to get ahead, the others will kind of strategically, okay, we got to slow this person
target
down.
Them a bit, yeah.
So we'll kind of have not an alliance per se, but okay, we all got to target this person. But then things will shift. We all got to target this person. So it ends up being pretty tight at the end of the game, which I like. So usually one person's not way, way, way behind. Everybody's in it till the end, which I appreciate.
Yeah. I really like the look of this game. I think my only quibble again would be, I agree, the board size could be a little bit bigger. I haven't played it at 6, so that it hasn't hit me quite as much. But I can definitely, I know for sure at 4 it works fine. At 5 it might start to get a little tight. But other than that, I think the game looks great. The cards are super. There's tons of these little characters on the cards.
Yeah, the steampunk art is really cool on the cards. Yeah. I love the artwork. And I just love the mechanic of that countdown, right? The suspense of someone's counting down, and whoever plays the lowest number gets control of the sort of round marker the next round and initiates that countdown.
And they get
That's
to
how
go
things
first
work. And they get
the next round. That's the first player marker, right?
Well, they don't necessarily go first because it's the highest number that will be revealed, right?
I guess what I mean by that is if there's ties, then it goes, because there's only 9 cards, so there are plenty of scenarios, especially if you're playing 4 or 5 players.
They get to initiate their action first in the event of 2 or more players have the same number, which does happen semi-regularly.
That's right. Yeah. So for me, this is a game that is a lot of fun, and that is the primary thing. It's not necessarily a mental exercise the way that a big heavy Euro might be. It's more about predicting what your opponents might be doing and trying to
get into their head, get into their strategy. Right?
Yeah. And you're kind of just like trying to thread the needle of just getting that one other astronaut in that zone so that you can get the points, come scoring, and that kind of thing. So I have a lot of fun with this game, but the key thing I think is don't take it too seriously.
Yeah. And if there's ever a tie on the board, then you share the points with the amount of resource tokens there as well. And in the final scoring round, you'll reveal your mission cards and you'll get your points there as well as those sneaky, nasty discovery cards that have been tucked around the perimeter. I mentioned a little earlier, I don't like that part of the game. Sometimes if other players agree, we kind
a little
of just
too
remove
random
that.
for you?
It's a little too random.
Okay.
Yeah. To take that too random. Sometimes it really gets really frustrating. But again, maybe I take this game more seriously than I need to.
Yeah, see, I don't mind those cards as much. You basically end up treating that zone a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's
somebody slides a card in there, and then you take note of who put that card there.
And if they're loading up people there, it's like, okay, they want to win the zone. But I've actually seen it where someone will be loading up in that zone early on and think it's good, and then they'll move off there right at the end, and you realize, oh no, that's not a good card
genius.
there. Yeah.
I think that's so much fun that you could do something like that. I can see somebody getting maybe a little bit frustrated with those surprises. But I tend to, especially for a game like this, I tend to not mind the swings.
With the chaos and the swings, it does fit the theme of the game.
Yeah, because I'm a very competitive person. I want to win. But at the end of the day, if I don't win, I'm not upset. It's like, as long as I had a good time and I feel like I played well.
Yeah.
When I say I'm very competitive and I want to win, I want to play well. And it's more that if I don't play well or make a lot of mistakes, I get a little bit upset at myself. And but I learn from it and that kind of thing. But as long as, especially for a game like this, you're not taken too seriously, the swings for me are part of the fun. Like, you just have a good laugh about it.
Yeah. So as you've been listening, you probably figured out who this game is for. It's some strategy, but don't take it too seriously. Have some fun. There's always a good story to tell at the end of the game as you're boxing it up. You have a good laugh, and win or lose, if you play well, it's a good experience.
It's very charming on the table. It's
got a good table
if you're
presence.
Very averse to take that and you don't want your stuff ever messed with, if you're more of a heads down player, this is probably not for you. But if you like that heavy interaction, you like being messed with and messing with others, and having a good laugh about it, this game is definitely for you.
Yeah, this is one of the few games in my collection that there is a significant amount to take that, but I still enjoy the experience for the most part.
Right on. What is your score for this game?
So at the end of the day, I give this one an 8. It's that pretty solid, not spectacular, but it's one that I want to keep in my collection. It's one that does hit the table. It's one I can teach to people relatively new to the hobby too, and they'll catch on to it pretty quick. And most people I've taught this to, they've enjoyed it.
Yeah, extra points for sure for the weight and the accessibility.
Yeah,
if you can read a card, you're good to go. And it's fairly easy to teach, and the theme is very intuitive because it's easy to look at your cards and know, like, this is the number 8 card. It's very likely to happen.
It's a good gateway game to teach area control, hand management. It's not too overwhelming.
Yeah, well said.
What's your score? I give it an 8.
I have it as an 8 as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorite games. I will play it anytime if it's recommended like this. It's just a lot of fun.
I'll probably play it this weekend. Like, we're recording this, so we're actually about to go to a sort of a 24-hour marathon event. We're recording this right around International Tabletop Game Day, and so our church is hosting a little 24-hour marathon. This will probably be one of the games that hits the table next 24 hours for us.
Yeah, right on. I have not played it at 6, so maybe that should be on my gaming menu for the weekend. Cool. So that is Mission Red Planet.
Well, let's keep hanging out on the Red Planet because we're going to pivot to our paired movie of the episode. As we talked about earlier, we chose not the Ghost of Mars, not Total Recall. That would have fit well with the
Total
resource
Recall.
management,
Maybe
the
we'll cover
colonization
Total Recall
theme.
another time with On Mars or something.
But we're going to Ridley Scott's 2015, which is interesting because the second edition of the game was 2015 as well. I didn't realize that until right now. Look at the show notes. Yeah. They both kind of came out the same year.
We did that on purpose. Totally.
Yeah, we did. Sure. Let's pretend we did.
We're so good at this, Jason.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Ridley Scott for a few minutes. Maybe we should start there.
Yeah.
Let's just quickly talk about some of his filmography. What are some of the other movies of his that you've really enjoyed?
Kind of strange because Ridley, like if you talk about my favorite directors, Ridley Scott just doesn't come up for whatever reason. But he has directed a lot of great movies and a handful of my favorites.
Absolutely.
Including Alien. We talked about in the past, my favorite genre being sci-fi.
Sci-fi /
horror is also one of my favorite genres. I love that stuff.
Alien's one of my all-time
This is
favorites.
one of the first that really blended the two. So yeah, Alien is one of my all-time favorites. He also did Blade Runner, which is kind of a cult classic that is again just the story-wise there's not a ton there, but the characters and the tone and feel and look of that movie
definitely ahead of
is
its time.
Incredible. And then The Gladiator is another one of my all-time favorites.
We got a sequel coming later this year. Gladiator 2 will be released by Ridley Scott, so I'm excited to see that.
We'll likely cover that at that point. And then recently, a movie that came out in the last couple of years, which is something that I'm hoping that we can cover down the road. But The Last Duel, I think, flew under the radar for a lot of people.
Didn't do well in the box office.
No,
critics liked it, but audience didn't. And I was pleasantly surprised when you brought that up off camera.
Big
you said
fan.
you enjoyed that one, and I did as well. It was in like top 10 or
and I
15 of the
don't
year.
see, when you say like general audiences didn't connect with it as much, I think it was an expectations thing. It's called The Last Duel. It's set in like medieval France, I believe, and it is not a war movie. It is not chock full of action and swords and gladiatorial combat or any of that stuff. It is more.
Well, it's a Me Too #Me Too movie.
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
It basically comes at things from the same story being unveiled and unrolled from 3 different perspectives.
Yeah. And I think the movie is absolutely brilliantly made. And the thing that really struck me is you talk about the same story being told in 3 different perspectives. What really struck me is how small the differences are from the different perspectives, and how the smallest smile or smirk or wink or little moment that happened is perceived in completely different ways by different characters. And I just thought that was really fascinating, the way that was put together.
I think I agree. That's one that deserves a whole full episode, and we'll probably circle back to that. A couple others here that jump out: Kingdom of Heaven, Black Hawk Down, some of the best sound design I've ever seen in movies. Matchstick Men, totally different.
Love Matchstick Men. Yeah. So much fun. Definitely check that one out.
Yeah, Robin Hood, again, Prince of Thieves, American Gangster, a number of the other Alien movies. Most recently, Napoleon, which was sort of hit or miss for most people. House of Gucci, which was a bit of a mess for me.
Thelma and Louise is a classic that I haven't seen, but is obviously really popular.
Yeah, so Ridley Scott's done so much. And this, I believe, is sort of one of his better ones, The Martian. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the movie The Martian.
Yeah, so released in 2015, directed by Ridley Scott, stars a who's who of the cast here is unbelievable. But Matt Damon, Jessica Chastain, Kristen Wiig, Michael Pena, Jeff Daniels, who I'm a huge fan of, Sean Bean, Benedict Wong, amazing character actor, and Sebastian Stan, the Winter Soldier himself. Nominated for Oscars in Best Picture, Adapted Screenplay, Actor in a Leading Role, Sound Mixing, and Sound Editing, and famously won Best Picture or for Comedy or Musical at the Golden Globes, and that was kind of like,
well, it makes sense when you think about it as we get into the details.
Yeah,
this is a pretty comical movie.
It is
for
really funny.
a serious theme. There are a lot of laugh out loud moments.
It is
under the surface.
It is really clever and like full of sarcasm and charm and wit, and it is very funny. That being said, I still would not classify it as a comedy.
It's not primarily a comedy, but the Golden Globes is weird like that. How it tends to lump things into the music comedy category versus the drama action.
And like, I think it was strategically put in that category because it had a shot, whereas it probably would not have had a shot.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was up against.
Me
but
neither,
it did
but
win. Yeah.
I do definitely remember that discussion being had about like, should the studio who's submitting this decide what category it's going into? I don't think that should be the case, but that's a discussion for another day. But famously, it was kind of ridiculed for having won that award.
Yeah. So for those who have not seen the movie, or maybe it's been a while, we'll circle back to the broad synopsis and we can talk about specifics and what we liked or disliked about the film. But during a manned mission to Mars, astronaut Mark Watney, played by Matt Damon, is presumed dead after a fierce storm, and he's left behind by his crew. Basically, there's a mission to Mars. They get there, a storm breaks out, in a panic, they got to get back on the ship and leave prematurely, and Matt Damon's character Mark is presumed dead. But
somebody played the assassin.
Yeah. Somebody played the saboteur.
The saboteur code. Messed things up and killed Mark Watney.
Yeah, but
of
course that would have been a very short movie. But the whole premise is, he has survived, and he finds himself stranded alone on the hostile planet. And because they had to leave so quickly, they did leave behind resources. But he's only got a limited supply of resources, so he's only got these meager supplies. He's got to draw upon his own ingenuity, his persevering spirit, his optimism, basically, to survive, not only simply to survive, but to send a signal back to Earth, letting them know, hey, I'm still alive, come and get me. Of course, you can't just do a quick U-turn and come back quickly. That literally years are required to get back and rescue him. So the whole movie it's in the vein of like Castaway, basically. Some of those man versus nature, the will to survive movies. Only in Castaway, nobody knows he's alive, right? Whereas here, they do find out he is able to, using his genius and sciencing the shit out of things, to survive long enough to get word back to NASA. So most of the movie takes place on Mars, but it does cut back and forth to his crew, and they're going through their guilt and shame and their emotions, right? We got to get back to Mars and rescue him. So that's basically the long and short of the synopsis. We can get into some of the details, some of your favorite parts of the film, Matt, or anything else you want to add to the synopsis of it.
Yeah, so essentially launching a ship for NASA is not a simple endeavor.
No.
And
not as simple as playing a card out of your hand in the game.
No, it's not just filling a ship with astronauts and it automatically launches.
Big times, big money, big resources.
Time and exactly. And that's one thing that is against our character, because he at one point he says, we have packed for 68 souls, and a soul is
basically
like the soul is the name of our star.
Right.
So a soul here on Earth is referred to as a day. Right. A soul on Mars is a little bit different. Sure. I don't know exactly what the percentages are or the length is. I'm sure it's similar-ish to Earth, but they had planned for. They had 68 days worth of food and supplies.
Which a little buffer, right? They always add a little extra.
That's right. And they were only going to be there for 30 odd days. Right. I think 32 days or something like that.
Got double.
Right. Plus now he's alone. So that stretches out to a certain amount. And he does
he's
the
doing
math.
The math. And he's got to ration off his supplies, right? Yeah.
That's right. And he figures that he can only survive a certain amount of time, which is going to be something like 400 souls short. Or whatever the number may be. So the next mission. So what's actually going on in his head at the beginning when this first happens is that they don't even know he's alive, and he doesn't have any way to communicate with them to let Earth know that he's still alive.
Yeah.
So
if he doesn't communicate, then basically he's as good as dead.
Yeah. So in the early part of the movie, he figures he doesn't have any way to communicate. So what he's thinking is, I got to figure out a way to survive 4 years and then travel 3,000 kilometers to the landing site of the next mission.
Right.
Because it's the next mission's already planned.
Mm-hmm.
And as he knows, and as NASA knows, it's not that easy to just like put together a ship and launch. And it takes, I think, a year or two to travel there in the first place. I want to say it's like a year or something, or a little over a year.
Yeah. So he gets to the point where he's like, okay, he's doing the math. He's like, okay, I got to make contact sooner rather than later here, or the math just isn't going to add up. Like,
and that's when he famously says, I'm going to have to science
the shit out of this. Yeah.
In the face of overwhelming odds, I'm left with only one option. I'm going to have to science the shit out of this.
So yeah, he's got to figure out a way to survive. And then he figures out at one point that the only way that this is going to happen is if he could actually grow some crops on a planet that has no water.
Yeah.
A planet that doesn't
no
grow
sustainability
anything.
of life.
That's right. So that's when he realizes that because they don't eat like food, they eat like packets.
The packets, but there's only
of
limited
like
supply.
mush.
He's got to get something growing organically there.
That's right. But now, so then he takes out a bin that says, do not take out until Thanksgiving. And so I guess for Thanksgiving, they were going to have this special meal. And it had, I want to say like a dozen, half potatoes in this like freeze dry pack.
Yeah.
So,
bit of a light bulb moment there, right?
That's right.
Our service mission here was supposed to last 31 souls. For redundancy, they sent 68 souls worth of food. That's for 6 people. So for just me, that's going to last 300 souls, which I figure I can stretch to 400 if I ration. So I got to figure out a way to grow 3 years worth of food here on a planet where nothing grows. Luckily, I'm a botanist.
Of course, he's the botanist, right? Conveniently.
yeah, exactly. So we didn't talk about who originally wrote this, but Andy Weir wrote this book, and it was like
it's an adaptation, right? This is not an original screenplay.
Yeah, and the book did extremely well. And I actually ended up buying the book at one point.
Oh,
it was on the dollar.
I haven't read it.
Used bookstore. I haven't read it yet. I wanted to give myself a little bit of time to separate myself from the movie before I read it because it's so fresh. But now I've rewatched it for this, so I'm gonna have to, put more buffer there. But I actually discovered more of Andy Weir's books. So I read Artemis, which is about a colony, an already established colony on the moon. In fact, it had been established in the book for, I believe, decades, and our main character was like born and raised on the moon.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of like geopolitical stuff going on in the book, and he's famous for getting the science right, and I think that's one of the things.
It's one of the strengths of this movie.
Really appreciate about this movie is how much science there is in it, and it's kind of explained in a way that like we can understand, but it still sounds and feels really smart. And that's one of the things that I appreciate the most about this movie. And Andy Weir wrote another book called Project Hail Mary, and then Project Hail Mary is a book, being adapted to a movie that is slated to come out in 2026. It has directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller attached, nice. Which I'm really excited about. And then the same writers. So Drew Goddard wrote or adapted Andy Weir's book for The Martian, and he's doing the same for Project Hail Mary. And so far they have Ryan Gosling as attached as the lead. And this is another story where one man is alone in space, but he's actually trying to find a solution for a major problem Earth is having. And he's trying basically to save the world. So I won't go too much more into it, but Project Hail Mary, I'm very
that's interesting. About. So Phil Lord, Lego Movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, 21, 22 Jump Street. So that's interesting filmography. Yeah, and I'm just looking up on Letterboxd here. So Ryan Gosling and our girl Sandra Hüller from Anatomy of a Fall.
Oh, nice.
She's going to be, I guess, co-starring at this
No
point.
way.
So she's been added to the cast.
Oh, that's great. I think I already know
that's immediately going up on my most.
I think I already know what role she's going to play, and I am very excited for that casting. That's great.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. So obviously, this film proved that this author, his movies can be adapted well to the big screen, and the fact that it was nominated so many awards proves that. So yeah, interesting. I'm
so in terms of the science, I am personally a huge fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Mm-hmm, as am I.
And he had some really interesting words to say about.
He had high praise for the science in this, didn't he? Yeah.
Love me some Martian. Plus, it got so much science correct. Oh my gosh. And one of the highest compliments I ever received was from the writer of that original story, Andy Weir. He said, Neil, when I was writing out the science on this, I imagined you were looking over my shoulder. And that put him on notice, because if he messed anything up, he was worried I'd be tweeting about it after. So, The Martian is the most scientifically accurate film I have ever witnessed.
The most scientifically accurate.
That's high praise coming from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
100%.
And that's part of a longer YouTube video where he looks at a bunch of sci-fi movies and he ranks his favorites. Not based on how well necessarily they're scientifically inclined, but he has high praise for The Martian because of that.
Yeah, so for all the things that The Martian got right, there was a handful of small things. I guess I shouldn't even say small. There was a handful of things that it didn't get right, and it wasn't for lack of knowledge. They weren't mistakes. They were artistic choices that were made, which I am totally fine with. But I just find them very interesting. So we'll run them down really quickly. But one is that the atmospheric volume on Mars, so like the thickness of the atmosphere, is less than 1% of what it is on Earth.
Right.
So there's no such thing as a windstorm on Mars. The highest windstorm couldn't knock over a paper plane off a table. They
had to add some sort of event or catastrophe that led to the moment, the catalytic moment that left him stranded, right? And they chose the windstorm.
And I did listen to the director commentary a few days ago, and the director commentary had, of course, Ridley Scott, but it also had Andy Weir, Andrew Goddard, the two writers. And Andy himself said, the original writer of The Martian, the book, said, I could have found another way to strand him on Mars, but it just wasn't as fun.
It's not as cinematic.
Yeah, and you've got to prioritize fun. You got to prioritize the cinematic nature of what you're trying to achieve here. So Mars is about half the size of Earth and is about 40% of Earth gravity. And so one decision that they made was that, and I thought this was really interesting. Anytime he's in a spacesuit and he's outside, they slow things down. They get him to move a little bit slower, and they do some trickery with editing to slow things down to make things look a little bit lighter and easier and slower. But none of that looked right when he was inside the habitat, farming potatoes, moving around, and doing things. So they decided to just anytime he's outside, it feels a little bit more like Martian gravity, and anytime he's inside and just in normal civilian clothing, they just kind of leave it as is, and I think that works just fine. And then finally, the time latency. So any communication between Earth and Mars, I think, takes about 20 minutes. Is what they figured.
Would have been a really long movie.
Right. But they didn't even, they could have cut it in such a way that all they would need is one shot between communications of him sitting there twiddling his thumbs or whatever.
Don't mention that.
But that would just kill the pacing a little bit, I think. So they just kind of omitted the fact that there's time latency, but they do mention it late in the movie.
Yeah.
But it's kind of an offhand mention.
Just to appease the guilt of Mr. Weir. Neil deGrasse looking over his shoulder.
That's right.
Yeah, you can tell they knew all this, but they had to make some artistic choices.
For sure. And I don't begrudge them for that.
Value, and I understand that. Yeah, it is very on point as far as the science overall, the hardcore science. It's quite interesting. What are some of your overall likes, dislikes about the films, Matt?
I am a huge fan of the and I think this is the movie. is Matt Damon's performance. There's nothing else. If you had to choose one key thing that made this what it is,
movie memorable, it's Matt's performance.
It's got to be. And I mean, when a movie is 80% one character and 80% one character talking to himself,
it's difficult.
It
doesn't always work.
The whole thing just hangs on his shoulders.
And paired with the writing. I mean, you got to have the actor and the script.
Yeah.
I think the screenplay is phenomenal, and that's kudos to the original source material.
Yeah, there's a couple of key moments when he first received a typed message, as opposed to like. So what ends up happening? I don't think we talked about this in terms of plot, but what ends up happening is he remembers that Curiosity? No, it's the first one. So there's 2 rovers that have been sent to Mars in reality in our world. Pathfinder.
Yes,
Pathfinder. So Pathfinder was sent in 1996, I believe.
Not the Nissan version.
No. The NASA version.
Close.
Close. So the NASA Pathfinder is like long, at least in the world of the film, because this is like near future. In the director's commentary, they said they imagine it to be like 15-ish years in the future, which puts us at about right now, or maybe just
pretty close
in a couple of years from now. So they wanted this to be like near future. And so in the world of the movie, Pathfinder is no longer in use. And Matt Damon at some point, I think like maybe a month in or something, like he'd been there for a little while at this point, just goes and remembers that Pathfinder's out there, and he starts to make his way out there and remembers that there's communication devices on Pathfinder.
So he's able to MacGyver some of that to try and make contact.
Yeah. So I won't go too much into the details, but like they basically use an equivalent of like almost a Morse code communication system involving like letters and numbers or whatnot, to be able to communicate, but very poorly. Very simple, like yes or no questions.
So it takes a long, arduous, tedious process.
That's right.
To communicate.
So by using that long, arduous process, they were able to send him instructions, simple instructions, so that he could hack his rover communication system to be able to connect to Pathfinder and actually have typed messages.
Speed up the process. Yeah.
So to bring this back to what I was saying about Matt Damon's performance is that I want to say like 3-4 months in, or whatever the amount of time is, a good amount of time where he's had very limited, really bad communication. For the first time when this task is completed and he's hacked the rover, he's getting a typed message from somebody that's like, hey Mark, what's going on? How are you doing up there? And he gets this like long paragraph, and you just see it in his face, the elation of like, this is incredible. And he almost gets emotional. And
it gives him a little hope to kind of keep moving, to stay optimistic and persevere.
Yeah. So that moment, and then the moment he hears a voice for the first time, it's not specifically played that way, but you could just see it on his face. He starts to like cry.
Human connection there.
And he finally, after, I don't even, like years at this point, it's been a couple of years, I think. Where he gets this, hears the voice of Jessica Chastain over the comms, just before he launches to meet them.
Which is interesting because it's Jessica Chastain, and another one of our favorite sci-fi movies, Interstellar. She's on the flip side of that conversation, sending voice messages to her dad. Right, so it's interesting that she's in both these films.
And Matt Damon's in there too.
Yeah,
in Interstellar. Right?
Yeah, so I like this film a lot, for the reasons we've discussed, the science of it, certainly the performance of Damon, the script. Where it teeters a little bit for me, sometimes it gets dangerously close to becoming more comical than it needs to. I like the light moments in this movie, but there are moments where I'm like, this guy's really too optimistic. Like, I don't know how he keeps on going. I don't know if I'd be able to, but there's something in him. I think that's a big part of where this sci-fi movie touches the human connection, right? It's that perseverance, that value of human life, just to keep on going in the midst of adversity. I think that's really what Ridley's trying to get to, and we're down below the sci-fi and the science and the shit out of it is this: what is giving this person hope to keep going, to reconnect with his loved ones back home,
right?
But I think sometimes it just veers a little too much, maybe in the comical aspects for my liking,
right?
But it pulls it back. There are moments of emotion, there are moments of suspense when he's got to do a surgical procedure on himself. It's like, oh, oh, you're just like, you're wincing as you're watching.
For sure.
But the last 20, 25 minutes, if I'm going to critique this film, and I like it, we're both fans of this film, I think all the good stuff happens in this movie on Mars. But in the last act, sometimes we spend very little time. There's this 20, 25-minute stretch where it's NASA, and not as much Matt Damon. And I was like, oh, I wanted more in that. And I understand they got to go back and forth, and maybe NASA had some requirements for this film. I don't know. Maybe they had some requirements and regulations that they needed to add a certain amount of stuff happening in the room in NASA on Earth. But when I wasn't with Matt Damon's character, I wanted to be back there as quick as possible. And there were stretches where like, I can't wait to get back there. That's a minor quibble.
Yeah, we do cut back and forth for NASA quite a bit, but it does get a little bit heavier on the NASA stuff in the last act.
Right.
But even prior to that, I love all the NASA stuff. And
I do in small doses, but there were long stretches where it felt a little too much, and I wanted to get back with Mark a little more regularly.
We talked about the cast, and all of the folks at NASA are really great.
They're emotionally invested in this story.
I thought Jeff Daniels was just perfect in his role, and you got Sean Bean doing great work there too, and he doesn't die, so I don't know what's up with that. Sean Bean dies and everything, but
you're waiting for him to die.
Yeah, it's like, when does he die? When's the scene that he dies?
Yeah, we haven't talked about Chiwetel Ejiofor. He's phenomenal too.
He's great.
He's great.
And one of my favorites, I think, is Donald Glover. Yeah. I just love his complete dismissal of authority. Like the scene where he figures out a way to like slingshot the crew back around Earth with a gravity assist and send them back to, which I love that sciencey like stuff is just like, I love that stuff. But anyways, he figures this out. And so he flies to NASA because he works in a different whatever area. So he goes to NASA and it gets a meeting with like the big head honchos and Jeff Daniel, who's the director of NASA, right? And so he's put into a boardroom with all of these important people, and his complete dismissal and like doesn't acknowledge the gravitas of the people that he's in a room with. Like, these are important people, and he's just this little mathematician, basically. And I just love the scene where he takes the stapler and he's like, you stand over here. What's your name again? And Jeff Daniels' character is like, my name's Teddy. I'm the director of NASA. Yeah. And he doesn't even care. He's like, okay, cool. So Teddy, you stand over here. He's got Kristen Wiig at the other end.
Yeah, he's just oblivious to who
it's just like, I just love that character.
Yeah, that's a good moment.
There's lots of moments like that at NASA where the characters are chatting and discussing things. And I especially appreciate that there are moments where their main concern is getting Mark Watney home. But NASA, being who they are, have a lot of other pressures and things that are pushing them in different directions.
I'm sorry, but you have not thought this through. I mean, what are we going to say? Dear America, remember that astronaut we killed and had a really nice funeral for? Turns out he's alive and we left him on Mars. Our bad. Sincerely, NASA. I mean, do you realize the shitstorm that is about to hit us?
How are we going to handle the public?
Legally, we have 24 hours to release these pictures.
We release a statement with them. We don't want people working it out on their own. But if my math is right, he's going to starve to death long before we can help him.
So there's lots of moments like that too, where you clearly get an idea of the business of NASA and how things operate and what's important to them. And especially with Kristen Wiig's character, she's like the media, the PR person for NASA. So she's trying to position things and in such a way that is going to be advantageous for NASA in terms of what their reputation is.
Yeah, as you were playing that clip, I was reminded of another movie. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie from the 70s that may have influenced this movie in the book. It's called Capricorn 1. Have you heard of that movie, Capricorn 1? No. It's with Elliot Gould and O.J. Simpson's actually in it.
Okay.
Yeah. And basically, so they have to fake a first Mars mission into a phony Mars landing because there was some things that were threatening the mission. But for the reputation of NASA, they had to make it look like it was legitimate.
Oh, okay.
And so they faked the launch, but then in actuality, it blows up.
Okay.
So now they got these astronauts that everybody thinks died, but they're actually still alive.
Oh,
and so to
no.
preserve the reputation, they've got to actually seek them out and try and kill them. So they're trying to actually survive.
That's hilarious.
Families.
It's
an interesting film. It's worth checking out.
What's the genre? What's the tone of the movie?
Like, it's a sci-fi movie, but it turns into like,
it's not like it sounds like a comedy.
No, it's not a comedy. It's like, it's meant to be a very serious film about, okay, we faked this to preserve the reputation of NASA. Things actually did go wrong, and now we've got to tie up all the loose ends. The loose ends being the crew, and they're realizing, oh shit, we got to survive here, or they're hunting us down. So it becomes into a survival movie in and of itself. So that clip just reminded me of that film.
Yeah, that sounds. My childhood. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. It's a 70s film, right? So tonally, it's a little different, but there's some interesting connections to this film.
Right. I thought the Hermes was really cool.
Yeah.
The like production design of that ship. It's like this super long, I guess, cylinder or like whatever. And then they have the prototypical spinning wheel to create gravity.
Right.
But you see some of the moments inside that ship where they're coming down that long, hallway or whatnot, and they're floating. And then they take a ladder down into the spinning wheel, and you physically see the gravity going from 0 to like regular Earth gravity in one shot. And it's just like, that is so brilliant.
It's pretty cool production design in this film.
Really neat. It's a subtle thing that a lot of people might not even notice. It's not, they don't call any attention to it.
Yeah.
But it's just a really, really neat.
Well, when you play Mission Red Planet 6 players, you'll see a long corridor of ships ready to take off in similar fashion.
Yeah. So I don't have a whole lot of negative to say about this movie. It's one of those movies where there's like not really much wrong with it. That being said, I don't think it's a perfect movie. It's just like there's not really a big emotional core to the movie. There's I want to say 0 character growth. So it's not like there's any major character arcs. Other than maybe Matt Damon not taking life for granted, but that's not specifically shown in any way, shape, or form.
I think it just does well in connecting his character to us to what if we were in his shoes?
Mm-hmm.
Would we continue to persevere? Would we give up? What would give us the impetus to keep going?
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of it. And I think Ridley Scott has done well in honoring this book. But again, it boils down to Matt Damon's performance in the screenplay. That's a primary strength.
He's really great. And you're talking about Matt Damon's performance, the screenplay, and Ridley Scott. So
those three
when you read a book, you're inside a person's head typically.
Yep.
So when they think about something, it's just written on the page. That is way more difficult to be inside somebody's head on the screen.
When you're seeing it visually.
Yeah. And they use 3 different types of quote unquote voiceovers. They had the voice, the Matt Damon when he's talking to himself out loud.
Yep.
In a few moments. There's a handful of times where he's where it's just voiceover, like where he's not talking to anybody specifically, but it's like non-diegetic voiceover inside his head. Not very many, but there's a small percentage. And then the large percentage is him doing like video diaries where he's actually talking to a camera.
Right.
And to balance all of that with the amount of exposition that's in this movie and the amount of talking that Matt Damon does alone, and to make that entertaining and get the pacing right, I think is a huge feat.
It is a huge feat, and this could have been a disaster. It could have been. I never once did I feel like they were pandering to me or talking down to me or spoon feeding me with all the exposition.
Right.
It felt seamless and natural, and it fit with the pacing of the movie. And that's strong kudos to Ridley Scott and his screenwriter for sure.
Making those decisions, like it really thread the needle to be able to make this thing actually work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So ratings time. At the end of the day.
Yeah,
what do you give this?
The last thing I wanted to mention, and the reason that I have it rated where it is, I have this a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5?
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
It's solid 4 out of 5 for me as well.
And I want to say the main reason, and obviously the theme and the genre is like, right up my alley. but there's kind of a subgenre of movie that I call competency porn, where you're just watching people be really, really smart and really, really good at their jobs. There is something so cathartic and so captivating when you watch somebody be excellent at something. I just find that incredible. And like the latest example of that might be David Fincher's
The Killer.
The Killer.
Yeah, that's a good comp.
The first 20, 30 minutes of that movie is just you're watching him be excellent at something. And man, that is
with a lot of voiceover as well.
That is so satisfying. Yeah, right, with a lot of voiceover. And I found this entire movie to be exactly that competency porn of just you're watching Mark Watney be absolutely excellent at stuff, and then you're watching all the scientists at NASA and Jeff Daniels and Benedict Wong and Ejiofor. These people are all just excellent at what they do,
and seeing how in a high pressure situation where things don't go according to plan in both those films, how they respond, right?
Absolutely. So that's for me, that's the crux of what this makes these types of movies so great, is just like watching people be excellent at what they do is just, I find so satisfying. The reason it's not, a 4.5, which is getting into the like my favorite movies of all time, I just didn't find there to be enough growth in any characters or any major emotional core to the movie. For me, it borders on, and it's not, it's better than just a popcorn movie.
Absolutely.
But it's just at the high end of what a popcorn movie is, and to give that a little bit of a definition, is popcorn is light and fluffy and delicious, but there's not much that's going to sustain you there.
Yeah, it threads the needle. It appeals to the popular audience as well as some of the critics as well. And again, I think Ridley Scott did what he wanted to do with his film, and kudos for him. Both give it a 4 out of 5. So that's The Martian paired with Mission Red Planet, both very solid board gaming and movie experiences. And hey, who knows, maybe you want to pair these together over a weekend. Grab some of your friends, get around the table, try Mission Red Planet, hang out with Mark Watney on Mars for a couple hours. That's the makings of a good weekend right there.
For sure. So, thanks for hanging out with us. If you're enjoying the podcast, take a few minutes to rate, review, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. You can follow us on Dice Camera Action. You can follow us on Instagram at Dice Camera Action Pod. We have a Facebook page that you can join. So if you search Dice Camera Action, and you can send us an email at dicecameraactionpod@gmail.com if you have any comments or suggestions, or if you want to recommend any board games and or movie pairings. We're definitely down to...
we're always open for your feedback, suggestions. You're a part of this community, and we appreciate you taking time to be with us here on Dice Camera Action. Take care.
See ya.
Mars will come to fear my botany powers.